I was taking rejection so much more. Because people don't get that too. It's like, hey, you got to get through 100 no's before you get a yes.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like, hey, now I was gobbling up those no's with a smile on my face and just racking them up. I'm saying increase my frequency. And then all of a sudden shit starts popping. Then it fucking clicked. I'm like, aha. I was like, wow, I got like 3 listings at once. It's like a FSBO, like 2 expired. It's got a buyer in their contract all at once. And I'm like, holy fuck. I'm like, wow. I was like, when I just put my head down and grind, just do the shit and just know I'm going to have to go through these no's. And that's just part of the process.
Walk us through the work ethic that you have, because for us, the one thing that attracted us to each other is that we had a very short list of what we were not willing to sacrifice to get what we wanted, right? It was a very short list. There was no excuses. We were in the office from like sometimes 6 o'clock in the morning till like almost midnight. And there was reasons why we would do that. Where does your work ethic come from that gives you the energy to want to become a workhorse?
Yeah, bro. You know, growing up, I grew up, for lack of a better, definition, white trash. And, I did. We grew up, and like how I grew up was not a dream childhood for most people, in America. And, I saw a lot of things, was exposed to a lot of things. And it really built me up by the time I was in my 20s, where I was like, you know what? I don't know exactly what I want in this life, but I've got a whole list of shit I don't want in my life, right? And I want to make sure that list doesn't become a reality or continue to be a reality in my life. I've slept in cars. I've had nowhere to go. I got my business off the ground, literally moving in with family and sleeping on their floor for 2 years. Why? I faked it to make it. Right. And just kept getting after it, trying to do. Why? Because it keep me up at night, spending another day how I grew up. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. I don't care what I have to do. I don't care if I've got to knock on 1,000 doors. I don't care if I have to cold call 1,000 strangers in my underwear fucking all day long. Like, that's what I'm going to do. Right. And, it took me a while to have a breakthrough, because I had saved up money to try to make a big leap full time from what I was in previously into this. And I failed. I actually spoke at Tom Ferry Summit in 2017 about like my experience doing that and going through that. And I saved all my money. And what do you do early on? You know what I mean? Everyone's looking for an easy button. I started buying leads, Zillow, Realtor.com, going broke in less than 6 months. Because why? Because I spoke to someone 3 times that they're going to fucking transact with me. Right. And I'm calling these companies like, these fucking leads are shit. These are garbage. I'm spending, all my money on this. I call these guys 4 times. They're not buying or selling. Like, this is BS. Not knowing that, hey, I probably need $100,000 budget before I would even consider buying into Zillow or Realtor.com. Right. I need to make sure that I've got maybe a year or two's budget, because realistically, these people probably won't convert for 18 plus months.
So true.
I just need to know I need to nurture them. So it's just about having realistic expectations, understanding the barriers of entry, and then getting a coach and finally saying, hey, like, stop spending money that you don't have. You don't have a consistent budget, right? Do everything you can for free. That way, you can sweat equity until you can be in a position where maybe you can have a little bit of check equity, right? And then go. And that really resonated with me. And so at that point, I had kind of a breakdown after falling in and out of the business about 2 or 3 times. And experiencing the same thing. It's like, well, I'm going to have 0 expectation, and I'm just going to go out there and put my head down, try to hone my skills, keep all my tools in my toolbox sharp. And I'm just going to maximize my day calling and knocking on every single door that I can, to where I'd have any excuse I could to go knock a neighborhood. I didn't have any deals there, any open houses there. I was just branching out, just trying to do whatever. And then when you finally do that, it's weird how the sky parts, right? And then all of a sudden you get a couple of bumps and you're like, wow, you're like, okay, I can do this. Right. I was listening to, have you guys read Matthew McConaughey's new book?
No.
Anyways, I think PBD, someone interviewed him recently, and I was listening to it, and it's funny because, we all know Dazed and Confused, right? We all love that fucking movie. And so in that, he said after that movie, that was his first, like, Hollywood opened the door to him, right? He got a little bit of attention. After that, everything went stale, and he couldn't get a gig for the life of him. There was some big Hollywood manager that was, let him sleep on his couch and shit. And one day he woke up and he's like, tells Matthew McConaughey, hey, dude, he's like, you fucking stink of desperation. Like, go to Europe or do some backpacks and shit. Do something for a year just to fucking get your mind, stop being such a desperate bitch. And so he did. He went fucking riding motorcycles through Europe and all this shit and came back for a year. And he just came out with all appreciation, 0 expectation. And that's something I got from Tony Robbins. 0 trade expectation for appreciation. And then all of a sudden it's weird how the universe, opens up if you put enough disproportionate attention in one direction with zero expectation, right? Of just going. And I try to tell that to agents as well, because you do shit 3 or 4 or 5 times that you hear everybody telling you to do, it doesn't work. And so you're like, well, I'm going to rule it out. It just doesn't work. It's like, how about this? Get rid of all of your expectation, follow protocol, do it this way you're supposed to do it for fucking the next 90 days, and come back to me and tell me if you don't have any lead opportunities or any deals going on. I'll be fucking mind blown if you don't.
Dissect that a little bit more for me when you say remove the expectation. Yeah. So would you say that translates to like help as many people as you can with their situation? I would say
we're in that type of symbiotic relationship, right, with clients and vendors and everything else, where we provide a service for people and we help them out, right, with a lot of dollars involved. And of course, our reward is commissions, right, compensation for that. But I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is people doing activities that they think are going to produce a return on investment and trying them a few times and not getting the results that they want. And just ruling out that it doesn't work, or going into something having all expectation. Hey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get that. I want this so bad. And it's like you just stink of the desperation. You stink of wanting it so bad. And it's like, get rid of that. Get rid of it. Don't have it. Go in with zero expectation and just say, hey, I'm going to go into this. I'm going to give it 110% until I drop dead, right? Or I win. And without any expectation, and just know that I'm going to follow procedure and do this to the T the best way that I can, and do it so consistently that I'm going to convince myself that it's working, whether I get results or not. And when people do that is when finally you have a breakthrough. And it's when I had my breakthrough. I finally stopped my 3rd time falling out of the business, having to go back and work for someone else, try to save money, hired a coach I couldn't afford, and just finally sat down and thought to myself, I'm just like, hey, you need to stop being a bitch. And you need to stop having expectations about shit. You just need to get the fuck out there and do it. Yeah. Right. And as soon as I did that, my whole energy changed. I felt positive. I was taking rejection so much more, because people don't get that too. It's like, hey, you got to get through 100 no's before you get a yes.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, now I was gobbling up those no's with a smile on my face and just racking them up. I'm saying increase my frequency. And then all of a sudden shit starts popping. Then it fucking clicked. I'm like, aha. I was like, wow, I got like 3 listings at once. It's like a FSBO, like 2 expired. It's got a buyer under contract all at once. And I'm like, holy fuck. I'm like, wow. I was like, when I just put my head down and grind and just do the shit and just know I'm going to have to go through these no's. And that's just part of the process. And I just need to increase them until I start getting a yes. And then shit starts popping. That's when my whole world turned around. Yeah. And sometimes people just have to go through that transition, dude.
I think it's interesting too. Like you were talking about how you paid for Zillow leads and none of them popped, as you said. Maybe because you didn't have enough of a budget, or you just didn't try for long enough, or whatever it was. And then obviously you were working, you shifted more towards phone prospecting, expireds, FSBOs, whatever it may be. And you were having better luck with that because you had less expectation. It's funny though, when you think about it, like when you compare the two, there's still rejection in buying Zillow leads, because half those people you call,
100%.
Even though you paid for the lead, we all know you call the people and they're like, I didn't sign up for that. Or I'm not ready yet, or I just hit a button online. I didn't think you were actually going to call me. Like there's still rejection. But when you go out and get the free rejection, right, which is prospecting, expireds, FSBOs, whatever it is, it's so much worse rejection, right? Those people are screaming and yelling, I don't need a realtor. Stop calling me. Where did you get my number? All that crazy shit. The level of rejection is so much higher. But once you put yourself in that, which again is free, because it feels weird because you're not paying for it, but you have to fight it. Once you get through that level, then I think you can have that massive breakthrough like you did.
Yeah. To tap into
huge. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Just to tap into the vein of the appreciation versus expectation. When you connect the dots between the skills you learn and the income you earn, that's when you become obsessed with the craft itself, and you become obsessed with the actions and the activities, not the outcomes of it. And the one thing that helped me, as I was 18 when I first started learning some of these skills, I would use them when we go out on girls. And you would start seeing it's like,
now you got Jay's interest here.
But think about it like this, right? You go out the first time and like you open up, you do an opener, right? And then you get rejected. You're like, that didn't work out as well as I thought. It's not like you're gonna be like, all right, I'm gonna stop talking to a chick completely. You're like, your body's telling you, yeah, you need to go talk to this girl. So you're like, all right, let's go try it again. And then you're trying it again. And you're like, this one worked a little bit better. I could do it this way. And then now you're like, all right, this is the perfect opener. I'm gonna start using this way. And then you get 2 steps further, 2 steps further. And now you have an orchestra of tools that you're using, and in so many different situations, you're more versatile, and you become obsessed with that. And you're like, all right, now let me try it in this way. And that's when you see it in that I always, when I'm talking to agents, I'm always relating it to dating life. I'm like, sales is like dating. You know, you just have to think of it in that term, and you'll get excited about the process, even if it flourishes into a check or not, because you're literally just, it's like that book, Rejection Proof, right? Where he would go in there and he would ask ridiculous requests, and people would say yes to some of them. And he was just getting used to taking the no's, because eventually he'll get a yes, but then he's fine tuning the ask. That's the part that's exciting and making it fun. The part that I guess gets a lot of people is staying consistent with it, or wanting to stay with it when the money starts coming in, because you're like, this is so boring. Walk us through that.
And you know, you're absolutely right, bro. Keeping the tools in your toolbox sharp, because once you do, you get that consistency. It stops being, you know, hey, you know, about money. I mean, money's great. That's a great byproduct of it. But you start liking the fact that you're winning. And you're like, I love sharpening my tools, sharpening my skill set, my objection handling, my scripting, everything that I'm doing, my prospecting habits, all that stuff, you just fine tune, right? We notice that. It's like when agents start out, what do you tell them to do? Track their conversations, you know, track your appointments. And you start noticing. I remember, you know, 12 years ago when I'm going on a dozen appointments, getting like one. And I'm like, why is my conversion so shitty? Right? And you're like, well, that's great. You're doing great on the phone, but maybe you need to improve the other half of it, which is your presentation. Right? How you're closing, all these things. There's always, it's multifaceted, and there's so many different arenas and avenues that you can improve on, just to keep all those tools in your toolbox sharp. Hey, not only am I an aggressive, consistent prospector, I'm great at following up and nurturing. I'm great at getting the appointment. I'm great at presenting and being efficient, and I'm great at closing and getting that contract signed. And then I'm just as good as positioning my clients well and actually getting fucking home sold. You know what I mean? Like all these different parts, all these moving parts that you hit on, and it gets addicting. And you're like, wow, you're like, I love the fact. And now it's like, hey, instead of 20 conversations to an appointment, it's like 3, you know what I mean? Because you've just gotten so much better over the last 10 plus years of honing those skills. And again, and time goes by quick, you know, and I tell all agents in this business too, it's like, hey, you know, you've got to crawl before you walk, you got to walk before you run. And, you know, this is one of those business where experience makes you better. You know, you get better every deal you do. You learn how to close them better. You learn how to navigate the waters better, what you say better, how to say them, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's what the huge thing was for me, dude. And then I got addicted to it. Then it's like, you know, now I'm doing NLP training. Now I'm doing, you know, everything that you can just to get better. Right. Yeah. And I love the analogy of the dating, because it's true. It's like, hey, you got to prospect and you got to be good at following up.
Yeah. So. And I think when you start, you know, like we said, the reason you track your numbers, I don't know how you guys do it over at the Tom Ferry organization. And I make that joke because, like, as you know, as we talked about before, KIRO and I grew up in Mike Ferry organization. We would use what's called a numbers analyzer. So we would put in, all right, today I called for 5 hours and I booked, you know, 3 appointments. And of those 3 appointments that I went on, I got 1 listing, right? And you start trying to constantly, you know, refine your numbers, right? So you could see what's interesting about it is if you could see that you set 10 appointments, but you only went on a couple of them, then maybe you weren't qualifying well enough, because maybe you shouldn't be going on, you know, maybe those people weren't worthy of the actual appointment. And you can see where the issues are in your business. And that's why we all track our numbers. Yeah. So
100%. Where bottlenecks and where you need to improve. Yeah.
Exactly.
I agree. But parallel, similar. Yeah.